Greetings collectors and welcome to today's rather creepy retrospective of The Seventh Guest. I hope you're sitting comfortably for a good old-fashioned puzzle game of horror and mystery. The Seventh Guest is a game with an interesting history and one of the pioneering games to break through to the masses on the PC CD format. The game is best described as an interactive movie puzzle adventure game with a strong theme of ghostly horror. As a game, The Seventh Guest is quite divisive when it comes to general reviews. Hopefully I can give a balanced view in this retrospective and reasons why I believe that The Seventh Guest is a collectible and well worth your time tracking down. In that vein, I'd like to start with how you can track down the game. Although the physical release to PC CD was way back in 1993, The Seventh Guest saw a resurgence in 2015 on Android devices and also a fully fledged PC re-release in 2013. This PC re-released version is a download version only, but it is very easy to find on game download sites such as Steam or Good Old Games. However, as a collector, it's likely that you'll want to track down the physical release of the game for your shelf. This is the first edition of The Seventh Guest from the UK, and I have to say that the packaging and marketing from Virgin Interactive and Trilobyte Incorporated are outstanding. The box is really well constructed from very thick cardboard and the overall design mimics the style of a hardback book. It's a really classy way to present the game. Future releases of the game were never quite so grand. There are a few features worth mentioning on the packaging. Firstly, the may not be compatible with some S3 accelerator cards sticker. Around the early 90s, home PCs were undergoing a huge transition. With Windows 95 on the horizon, hardware and software were also both in the stages of upgrade. Everything from accelerator cards to the latest sound card and modem were flooding the market, as enthusiasts built their own computer setups much cheaper than pre-made systems could ever be. With Windows 3.1 and DOS the dominant operating systems at the time, there was often a lot that needed to be configured when installing a game. Around this time, compatibility issues were rife and you never quite knew if your game was going to work straight out of the box. This is also reflected on the rear of the box, as the minimum and recommended configurations were given. Reading the minimum requirements is rather entertaining now that time has passed. For a minimum configuration, you're going to need a 386DX processor, 2MB of RAM, 16-bit SVGA, and at least 512KB of memory. In addition to that, you're going to need a CD-ROM drive with a minimum of 150k per second transfer rate, a sound card with FM and PCM sound, mouse, hard drive with 10MB of free space, and you're also going to need DOS 5 or higher. Recommended configurations recommend that you have a whole 4MB of RAM and also a 20MHz or faster processor. I wonder if anyone back in the day ever imagined that we'd be playing this game on our mobile phones. The rear of the box also gives you the game backstory, and huge callouts to all of the CD-ROM features and the 3D Haunted Mansion itself. The game has a huge 22 rooms and was also awarded the age rating of 15 from the BBFC. Don't be scared by this 15 rating though. A 15 rating is far in excess of what the game deserved. Seventh Guest is actually a rather tongue-in-cheek, family-friendly affair. So, with an excellent box cover, let's look inside. Well, this is disappointing. No lavish manuals or extras to be found here. 90% of the box is just, well, padding. In fact, the CD jewel case is the only item of substance. Since the manual is on the CD, the publishers went for the minimal effect inside the box. The sleeve notes are well written, but a large amount of room is dedicated to setting up the game, configuring and troubleshooting. You'll also find that the second disc also acts as a music CD. Yes, that's right. Put this in your Discman and away you go, listening to such classic hits as Dolls of Doom, Ghost of Diddley, and who can ever forget Skeletons in My Closet. There's a great note in here, which reads, "A good tune by my brother Dave, and a wonderful performance by Chris, who can sing anything." Yes, we certainly were very proud of our CD technology back in the day. The CDs themselves are well printed and carry the version history number on them. So let's spin disc 1 up on our brand new 2-speed CD-ROM drive. The setup time was worth the wait. The game opens to a well illustrated title screen and really puts you in the mood for some haunting fun. The introduction to the game plays out giving you the backstory of the main character, Henry Stauf. We learn that Stauf was a homeless man who fell into a life of crime, stealing, and eventually murder. After a bizarre dream about a doll, Stauf sets about making his own copy of the doll. In exchange for the doll, Stauf is given food and room at the local inn. From there, Stauf dreams of a puzzle box, which he then also creates. Before long, everyone in the town wants a Stauf toy, and the money is rolling in for Henry Stauf. One day though, a strange virus begins to inflict the child owners of the toys. This leads to a further dream that Stauf must build a house, which is in itself a puzzle. In terms of a game premise, I think that Seventh Guest is actually one of the better that I've seen. You find yourself invited to Stauf's mansion to try and survive the night. You're reminded that there will be only one survivor. The other guests arrive one by one. There's a variety of colourful characters, and I'm guessing that these were mostly out of work part-timers, as they really ham up all of their lines. I'm not going to criticise though, as the overall script and over-the-top delivery really is consistent throughout the game.
My, isn't this a cheery place?
Edward, I'm not sure we should have been here today.
Why? Because it's a spooky old house? Don't worry, dear. I'll watch out for you.
Conveniently, your character has amnesia, so the game will act as a journey of discovery for you. The game mechanics are fairly self-explanatory. You take control of a rather nifty skeletal hand to point and click your way around the mansion. There will be doors to unlock and secrets to discover. This brings us onto the games themselves. They're best described as a collection of mini-games. They're very much in the vein of the older Windows desktop style games, where the emphasis is on point and click. There is a good variety here. I think that most will begin with this introductory word anagram. The solution shouldn't pose too much difficulty for most. I did find it frustrating how the narrator would butt in every few seconds though, when I just wanted to get on and solve the puzzle.
Focus your thoughts on this one. Now this doesn't make sense, or does it?
There's an excellent puzzle here where you must divide a cake equally between the guests. It's tricky, but it was fun. By this point I was enjoying the overacting and the general vibe of the game. Then I came to the can puzzle in the kitchen, in which you had to spell out words using all of the cans. Now, I'm a university educated native English speaker, and even I had to resort to a walkthrough on this one. I mean, how often do you see the word triced? Personally, I felt that this particular puzzle really damaged the flow of the game. Other tasks, such as sliding grates around, were tolerable, if not a little mundane. The game picked up though with the skeletons in the coffin task. Here, the player has to open and close coffin lids with the aim of closing all of the coffins. As you close one coffin lid, the adjacent ones open, so you have to plan your strategy carefully. It's not a game that's going to set the world alight, but it was at least a genuine brain teaser. Upon completing certain tasks, there's often a cutscene, and that moves the story forward, and nice use of the CD technology. If you're anything like me, you may have a difficult time in making up your mind on the Seventh Guest. Is it a classic, or just a well-known game? Is it fun, or is it just frustrating? Personally, I can definitely confirm that for an early PC CD-ROM game, the Seventh Guest is a really nice example of why CDs superseded the humble floppy disk. The game is really competent in using the FMV and definitely gave the player something new. That something new though, was it that good? For me, I think that I can just about justify that yes it was. Seeing 3D rendered environments and the scale of the game is definitely a landmark experience. However, I can't get away from the nagging issue of the mini-games themselves. They range wildly in difficulty level. One minute you're solving a simple riddle, the next you're up against rock-solid difficulty. Had the games been more evenly paced, I think that the game would have benefited tremendously. The game premise, plot, and technical execution are all very sound. The acting is about as bad as it gets, but that's not an issue if you take the game with a pinch of salt. The Seventh Guest did keep me occupied for hours, but I'm not certain whether I had fun or not. If I did, it was certainly in small victories rather than a sustained level of fun. In terms of collecting, I'm pleased to have this physical copy though. This particular big book box edition has now become very difficult to find. I've so far not been able to find a reliable trade price, but it's likely to be over £30 here in the UK. All other big box editions are available from around £10 in the UK, but as little as $10 in the US. There are special re-released versions of the game that include a VHS making of, which are well worth looking for if you're a really avid fan of the game. In terms of collecting, this will all come down to what you're interested in. With the game available to download very cheaply with no install and configuration fuss of the original physical release, I'd say that the game is worth a few hours of your time if you're just looking for a standard puzzle game to play on a rainy afternoon. As a physical box collector though, I've been lucky enough to have bought mine a long time ago before the price rose sharply due to the reignited interest due to the re-release. As nice as the packaging is, the game probably just hasn't aged that well enough to warrant the purchase for most collectors. At the time, The Seventh Guest was a clear hit. As one of the first games to be released on CD only, it was an early killer application, and certainly deserves recognition for shaping and driving forward horror games on the PC CD format. The game did impress many at the time, enough to warrant a sequel, The 11th Hour. Personally, I'm not a fan of The 11th Hour, as it comes off as a second-rate version of The Seventh Guest. I may review this at a later date though, if there's enough interest. One final note on The Seventh Guest is that its minigames also feature on a rather obscure release from Trilobite, Uncle Henry's Playhouse, or Uncle Henry's Mind Blower as it's known here in the UK. The game acted as a compilation pack of games from the Trilobite trilogy, Seventh Guest, 11th Hour and Clandestiny. It's an interesting gaming oddity for the seasoned puzzle game collector. Although interesting, it's perhaps not worth going out of your way to collect if you have the main games in your collection. As for The Seventh Guest, it's a long-standing favourite with many collectors. Whether you're collecting for the nostalgia value or the fiendish puzzles themselves, you can't go too far wrong here with this creepy classic.
Don't worry, I won't bite. Edward, we could help each other out. I could help you, and you could help me. Come and talk in my bedroom upstairs, where it's nice and private.
Hello again, I hope you enjoyed today's show and thank you for the view. Remember, you can always comment, like, subscribe and find us on the social media sites below. Happy collecting!